up on the investment on Deep on this asset, Konkola Deep Mining. In fact, it's a jewel of KCM. KCM is not as poor as they present it. Remember, even at valuation in 2003 by Rothschild and others, they had said the mine was worth $1.2 billion, but they had said because of low prices, the lack of investment in the asset, they said you can sell it for about $650 million. We ended up selling it to Vedanta for $25 million. I've always called that the largest corporate scandal in this country, and no one wishes to discuss it. So KCM is a valuable asset, especially if you look at the ore deposit that are with Konkola Deep Mining if you develop it properly. So I'll be inviting you now to discuss, in my view, giving Vedanta, KCM back to Vedanta is totally careless with this record, where they were not paying taxes. They declared losses for the last 20 years that they were in the country, that they cheated on investment pledges. They used internally generated revenues then to run the mines and also use as capital expenditure. I think that they were not noble, they were not an honest investor to our country, to the people of Chingola, Chilabombwe, Kitwe. KCM, I think, deserves a better investor. And remember, even when Anglo-American was leaving, they had left, I think, an investment, they had just invested in a smelter in excess of $300 million. So this was a valuable asset whose, it was a valuable asset whose assets have since degenerated because of the methods used to mine in KCM and the type of investment that they tried to do, and just the entire cheating on it. People say, but people are desperate, people need jobs. So when we are desperate, we have to make desperate decisions. And why do we think a foreign investor from India and China or South Africa is the one to run our mines? Government has a valuable opportunity here. They own both KCM and they own both Mopani and KCM. Isn't there something we can do to run these mines? Do we have to look for this foreign investment and hand over all these assets? For Mopani, you are aware that there was a huge investment also done into where 2 shafts were sunk at great cost. So these are very valuable assets. So I'll be opening my line, 09748. I can see we already have callers here. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
My name is Kangwa. I'm calling you from Kitwe.
Yes, Kangwa, please make your contributions.
I'm calling you from...
Oh, sorry, I cut you. I wanted to put you on speaker. Please call back, please call back. I have a caller from Kitwe. Please call back. I'm just trying to maneuver. This phone is like a landline. So I have to see how I can put you on speaker and answer. I think he has called back. Hello?
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
My name is Kangwa, calling you from Kitwe.
Mr. Kangwa, make your contribution, sir.
Okay. I'm calling you from Kitwe. This is where Mopani is, and Chingola is very near to us, where Konkola copper mines are, including Chilabombwe.
Yes.
Ambassador Mwamba, let's take things step by step. KCM belong to Konkola Copper, to Vedanta, not so.
No, not at all. So, following this report I was reading you, we need to put some of these things clear. There's a lot of propaganda out there. So, Bakangwa, okay. Following this, the mining license was cancelled. Hence, a liquidation process.
Let me stress my point, Ambassador.
Oh, because you asked me, so I was just answering.
We got to this point because of the decisions that your government, PF, made. the people of Chingola, Kitwe, and Chilavombe are relying on Konkola copper mines and Mopani copper mines to operate properly. If we look at the details of the deals that you did, or maybe after you cancelled the mining license with PF, after cancellation of the mining license, you went into stripping of this mine, especially KCM. Everything was taken out, starting from scrap, the way KCM was managed. There was a lot of sabotage that went on with KCM. KCM went further by taking your government to court in UK. After you went in court in UK, everything came to a standstill. It's either Vedanta could have dragged on for years. You and Vedanta could have continued in court, which you did, until UPND government came into power. When UPND came in government, they knew that those cases can drag up to 2027, and that mine would have been finished by now. You likely put it to say, Konkola copper mine, especially the one, the underground in Chiravombe, Konkola, is one of the wettest mines in the world. And if not properly managed, that mine can go to waste just like Shaft 27 in Rwanda, which is not operational up to now. So would it be right for you to keep misleading the people that government is making a mistake when it's you who made a mistake and left KCM in court? So let's be truthful of what you are doing. You don't stay on the copper belt. Let the copper belt people tell you what these two mines can do to change the lives of the people. And if you continue, so tell me, which one is better? To continue mining in court where this asset goes to waste every day, or to find solutions where you take out the case in court, go to a negotiating table, give strict conditions for Vedanta to operate, or you let the mine run to waste and you let people die because you made mistakes in the way you managed KCM itself. If you look at those, the Midingos and the team, look at how much sabotage they put on KCM. Today the asset is in its worst form.
Bakangwa, this is a very hot topic. I'm inviting, it's a public topic. I want as many voices as possible. Kindly conclude, yes, sir.
Mr. Mwamba, in conclusion, learn to say the truth. Don't be this hypocritical. You are a liar with your PF.
My point is very clear. It's very careless to give the mine back to Vedanta. Vedanta has cheated us for the last 20 years. They didn't pay taxes. They accumulated the debt of $1.5 billion. You might not like the truth, but I will state it. I may not agree with the liquidation process, but I do not agree with Vedanta and the decision to bring you. Let's hear your views. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
I'm calling from Nakonde.
Yes, sir.
Yes, this is Sinkamba calling from Nakonde.
Who? Sinkamba from Nakonde. Yes, sir. Make your contributions.
Yes. I think it's a good program. And my contribution is that when you look at the way KCM was taken away from Vedanta, the memorandum of understanding between Vedanta and the government was that when there's a difference between government and Vedanta, they have to go for arbitration. However, while we acknowledge that Vedanta was not a saint and may have made mistakes, government did not follow the laid procedures. They didn't follow the law. Going for arbitration, what they did was they used shortcuts. They took advantage of the mistakes of Vedanta, and because of dictatorial tendencies, they grabbed it without following laid down procedures. Now, because of that, Vedanta went in court. And in court, Vedanta has been winning this case. We have not been going there. Vedanta has been winning this case. They went to South Africa. They've been winning this case. I've followed these cases. So, no any other investor can come into KCM because of the legal cases that are there. There's no investor that can risk it, bring their money, put in KCM when there are these cases and the government is losing this case, and the government use dictatorial tendencies to get it from them. That it lowers the investor confidence. Others will be thinking, okay, even us this can happen. Yes, Vendetta was wrong. In as much as Vendetta was wrong, government was more wrong. Now, who benefited when Vendetta was taken out from KCM? It is only the clique. The Miringolungu who was paid 10%. He used to get 10% of everything that KCM makes. And he's not the only one. He was getting 10%, and there were many people that were there. Those are the people that benefited. Now, the citizens and the country lost. Vendetta KCM could not even afford to pay for electricity. CEC, Copper-based energy. What happened? The minister has to pass that when he is threatening to catch power from KCM, the minister they made that SI to declare CEC equipment as the public, so that they supply free electricity to KCM. So KCM has been subsidized from PM.
Basin Kamba, can you conclude? I have so many calls, my phone is buzzing.
Yes.
Kindly conclude.
In my conclusion is that there's no any other investor that can come into KCM because of the legal cases. No one can risk. And we as a country, we do not have the capacity to do, because it requires a lot of money. So the only way is to give Vendetta conditions, that if they don't abide by the conditions, then we follow the laid down procedure.
Thank you very much.
That's the only way forward.
Thank you very much. The recommendations from the forensic audit was very clear that first, number one, because Vedanta had placed the $1.6 billion debt on KCM assets, and that number two, Standard Bank was threatening to put a mine in receivership. Number three, there was a recommendation that government, well, they didn't want nationalization, but they said you should do everything possible to ensure that there's recovery and restoration of, especially both the assets and the liability should be paid by Vedanta. Those are the issues that motivated government to take over the mine. Good evening, please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Good evening, my name is Gautama Nyerere.
Mr. Nyerere, good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Very well, thank you, very well. We have a hot topic on KCM and a multinational Vedanta. What are your views?
My views is that this is a disaster. I think as much as it's in the public record of the manner in which Vedanta has run the mine, the way they've engaged in transfer pricing, tax evasion, an audit report that confirmed that these characters had basically stolen from the people of Zambia to the effect of billions of dollars. That, and you compound the fact that in the national public fora, there is in public, one can even Google to say that Zeta is constantly paying fines because of irregular practices. It's constantly having to penalties. It's in every way they engage. They are an entity that does not work above board. And these are the people that we've decided to engage and such a valuable asset, like you pointed out, with $200 billion worth of ore. Ambassador, let me point out one thing. I noticed in your thread, in your articles, to an article that indicate Vedanta had debt of over $6 billion. I will have people know that just by coincidence, that is the $6 billion that we have gone and for the last 18 months trying to restructure as a debt that all the People's Republic of China. This is one entity that owes $6 that is practically insolvent, giving back. We've just made the same efforts as a nation to restructure it. What are we doing? Really, what are we doing as a nation, giving such a valuable of our mining entity to a company that is technically insolvent, engages in very, very dubious practices? What are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, I am disappointed. I feel that the government has taken the path of least resistance, and they have been late. We should have been more innovative. I also saw in your thread where you showed a Botswanan young lady in her early 20s celebrating the fact that the Botswanan government stood firm and were in ensuring that 51%, ensuring that they renegotiated their revenues to 51% with the bid. They stood their ground, they fought. Here we are, 73% or even 73% of the mine is going to go back to an entity that is $6 billion in so exactly the same amount of money that a nation like Zambia owes China, and for like you said, for the last 20 years, an entity that has shown they do not live in best corporate practice. This is a sad day. This is a sad period for the nation Zambia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I shared something on my page. I think I'll play it. This is De Beers. The president has been very clear. They just used to get 10%, from market rights to sell their diamonds. But this president came, he negotiated, they jumped to 25% and gave them a very short lease. And when the agreement came up for renegotiation, President Masisi has managed to jump it to 50%. This is besides their shareholding. They didn't have the market rights of the diamond. So their co-partners, shareholding structure, De Beers and a government of Botswana, 50%. But De Beers had all the marketing rights. So President Masisi negotiated from 10% to 25%. And when the lease was coming up for renewal, he refused. He says, I'm not giving you a 25-year lease until you give us marketing rights. And they've just celebrated where they've gotten up to 50% rights of whatever they mine from their De Beers partnership that they will sell. And then, so that's a good news. That's how Africa should move. We've had this resource curse where we don't benefit from our resources, and the owners of the mines are billionaires living in Cape Town, in London, in Hong Kong, in Canada. Yet our people remain poor. Yet our country remain poor. And Mr. Kangwa from Kitwe say, you the PF, you the PF. I'm Emmanuel Mwamba. My thoughts are very clear on our resource use. I don't even believe that we should be getting Vedanta. We have ZCCM IH. ZCCM original proved that they could run the mines at world-class level. We still proved that we can run these mines. I don't know why you think that an investor from South Africa or India is the one that's going to develop this country. It will never happen. It will never happen. If I am an investor, I'm going to Namibia, I will repatriate my profit back to Zambia. I will not invest in Namibia. I've gone for business, I'll pay my salaries, I'll pay my allowances and my taxes, but I'll bring the money back here. That's how all investors work across the world. This thinking, where you think an investor will come and develop our country, they'll build our schools, our hospitals, our roads. I don't know where this thinking has come from, where we think an investor, a foreign investor, is a panacea to our development challenges. It will never happen. An investor is a businessman. He's there for profit. He will come and he will leave you this environmental degradation. There'll be billionaires. They will have moved to another country. We ought to be smart with our resources. We can't be making the mistakes we've made in the last 60 years, where we think a foreign investor is the only one with money. ZCCM is a multi-billion-dollar company. Our ZCCM is listed in London, and in France, of course, there's been suspensions because of some corruption around ZCCM. But it's a multi-billion-dollar company. ZCCM can raise the money. Look at the books and audits of KCM. Vedanta used our assets and borrowed up to $1.5 billion using KCM assets. And then you heard in the report that they didn't invest the money, they were using internally generated funds. And you had on the side Standard Bank with a $700 million loan, and they were about to put the KCM in receivership. We need to discuss these matters candidly. We can't be making mistakes we've been making for the last 50 years again and again. Here there is a golden opportunity that for the first time in the last 30 years, the Zambian government owns Mopani and KCM. Why don't they unleash ZCMIH to go on the market and look for money to run these two mines? ZCM is able. First, it will have the assets of KCM. It will have the assets of Mopani to go to any bank. It's a reputed, internationally listed company in the world. It's listed in London and France. ZCMIH can raise the money you are looking for to run KCM and Mopani. To think that Vedanta and Mr. Ani Gawa will come and rescue our country is to fool ourselves. He has a record of 20 years. And Gautama has put it very clearly that wherever Vedanta is, they're paying penalties. I've just put something here where they are paying for another big fine, for irregular issues in India. And it's just like that wherever Vedanta is. Here we have records, we have audits. We know what they did the last 20 years. They never paid taxes. They were engaged in tax evasion. They were engaged in all sorts of manner, and they degraded their assets. And you want to give them. Mr. Kangwa from Kitwe advances this argument that I've seen from the UPND, where they allege that the mine belongs to Vedanta. It doesn't. The mine belongs to government. Vedanta has gone to court disputing government decision to take over the mines. And you might not agree with the liquidation process. There could have been any other. But because you are in court, you will not make decisions as government. Because you are in court, you can't run the mines. ZCMIH is owned by government. Why don't you let ZCMIH run both Mopani and KCM? This still waters, Sibanye still waters from South Africa. Do you even know them? they specialize in getting your mine dumps and reprocessing them. So now they should run your premier mines. I don't know why we think that the solutions lie from foreign investment. I think that there should be need for a relook. So call us on 077 37 83 785 or 974 808 115. We are discussing the case of KCM and Mopani. The Minister of Mines alerted us at his press conference last week that they are at the verge of finding an equity partner for Mopani and that they might likely give back Vedanta, KCM back to Vedanta. He mentioned Vedanta several times, and here is a caller. Let's pick the call. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, this is Chavuma calling. This is I'm calling from Chavuma.
You are calling?
From Chavuma district, Northwestern Province.
Okay, my brother. What's your name?
Pumulo Biva.
Pumulo Given. Kindly make your contribution, sir.
Yes, is this Mr. Mwamba?
Yes, it is.
Okay, we are happy for you.
Thank you.
We are happy for your new president, incoming president. Okay. I don't know if this is the same number that we use, eh?
Yes. There's another number we use, but we've been disturbed recently, but we'll restore everything. But it was important that we start our national conversations.
Okay. I think what you can do, share with me the number that you are using so that at least you build up some more You know.
Okay.
Give
Okay,
me the
Mr.
number
Mulu.
here.
I'll watch your number quickly and then I'll call you.
Okay, my
Thank
brother.
you.
I'm watching you live. Right
Thank you
now.
very much.
So,
God bless you
yes,
from Northwestern Province.
okay.
Thank you. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Hello.
Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
This is Sinkambas again.
Oh yes, Mr. Sinkamba.
Yes. My concern is that yes, we have a chance to run the mines like ZCCM. However, if you look at the history, ZCCM had failed to run these mines. Even during Kaunda, these mines became a pitfall for us to throw the money in. We are investing in the money and we are getting nothing. As a result, if you know these songs with Picket Shara, Common Man, and that, they came from there. The situation was bad, and that's what caused those mines to be privatized. Also, abuse of resources. Another example is just what happened when it was under liquidation. The same people that took over, like Milungolungu and others, are the people that benefited at the expense of the country. It was destroyed. The KCM was destroyed by government itself. When the data left, they never took anything from the mine. Everything remained there. But what happened? It became an operation. What? We failed to run those mines. So today, if you say government should take over, I'm telling you there are so many risks. Another government might come in and that mine will be abused. And the country will lose. Two, it requires a lot of money. That money that we invest, are we going to be sure that we'll get something out of it? Look, it can't even afford the utility vehicles, KCM as it is. It can't even afford the, what's this? It can't even afford the electricity bills. We are subsidizing it. But it's under the same ZCCH which you are talking about. And there are people that are there. It is there. It's government that was running the PF government, and they destroyed it. Now, you talk of us again borrowing and investing in the same mine. I think that will not be a good option for me. For me, right now, it has to be given back to the data, and then they should be given conditions. If they don't follow the conditions, they breach the conditions, then let them be taken to task. We follow laid down procedures. That's the only way. So, sorry, I have to go. At the moment, I'm in Northwestern. There's something that I'm doing. I have to go. Sorry. Some people have come.
Thank you. Greet them for me. Yeah. Well, like I've been stating that, look, ZCMIH is a multi-billion-dollar company listed in London and France. ZCM has capacity to raise money. This assumption that we put the debt on the books of government is not necessarily true. ZCMIH can borrow on its own account using the assets of Mopani and KCM. If you give these assets to whoever you will give them to, what will happen is, Vedanta, you've seen the international standing. They were in the books. They were failing to pay a loan that was due $2.5 billion. Why do they want KCM badly? To get the assets of KCM and walk to a bank and get a loan. I don't know how we don't get it. If I buy Mopani today, I don't have to produce my money or money from my family. I have to use the assets of Mopani and walk to a bank and then borrow for my capital expenditure and for my expansion program. I don't know why people think that the investors will come with money on their back. And we have demonstrated. Look at the owners of First Quantum Mines. They came as just two guys, two family members, bought Bwana Mkubwa. They are owners of First Quantum Mine, one of the largest mines in Africa. They just came with pata. Why? Because the assets themselves can generate you millions of dollars. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes. Hello.
Please switch off your phone or mute it, your device that you are watching us on.
Okay, mute it.
Kindly mute your device. Kindly mute your device.
It's already mute, sir.
I can hear you and I can hear myself, so it means it's not mute.
Okay. Okay, hello?
Kindly mute your device, my brother.
Oh, I've done that, sir.
Okay, please make your contribution.
Yes, good afternoon, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. Oh, good evening, sir. Yeah, actually, we are following your program.
Thank you
And
very much.
it's encouraging a lot to us. It's encouraging a lot to us. I just wanted to contribute that, to be honest, it's like everything, the UPND has failed in this government.
Yeah.
It has failed in this government, and we don't know what we can do now. It's to bring back PF. They start from wherever they stopped from, because it will be better for us. That then we can have a better Zambia, because they had plans. These other ones, they don't have plans.
Yeah.
They just hijacked the country.
Yeah.
If it was my opinion, I would have said that we could be married than 5 years.
Yeah.
He's wasting time. The president is wasting time. We can even hear his ministers in the parliament. They are long gone. They behave as people who are in Kaunda's area who doesn't know anything.
Mm.
But this is new age. We have new things to do in life. And then we can focus.
Okay. Thank you very much, my brother. Thank you. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
My name is Mark. I'm actually calling you from New York.
Yes, my brother from New York.
Yeah, I'm actually following what you're saying. I'm really also of the view that I think Zambians have the capacity to run KCM. First of all, we must be able to look at the reasons that actually brought us where we were with Vendetta. There are a lot of problems, and I think during that time of PF, the government was trying to do everything possible to make that business viable. But I think then the management of KCM at that particular time, they were really bent and they were really taking advantage of whatever it is. And if I may put it this way, maybe probably they knew that the government was at their mercy, so they would use whatever tactics that they would use to make them, go away with whatever they wanted. Today they've come back. They've come back. It's not necessarily that they really want to do things right. They know, they understand, they know what they want. They have assets. Like you said, when I look at the capacity of ZCCM has the capacity to do things and they can run that mine effectively. The biggest problem is when I hear people compare what used to happen then, during counter time and all that time, I still believe that it's totally different. The kind of mindset we have now is totally different from what used to happen then. I think we have the capacity. There are a lot of parastatals that are running by Zambians, and they are doing fine. KCM cannot be different. We can do it. We can do it. The only way we are going to benefit from these mines is when the Zambians really have a say. They have a big share in these mines. Otherwise, if we leave it to this, they'll come, because that's how they came at first. They said they are going to be responsible, they are going to take care of all these things here and there. They said that the time they were coming at first.
Yeah.
In the same vein, after some time they made their money, what happened? They began to misbehave. It is the same thing that is going to happen here. People come that way. They'll switch talk us. They'll bring us into this understanding that, oh, they're doing it, for the nation. But ultimately, it is their profits that they need. Like you said, they have the assets. That mine is viable. The assets are there. They'll use those assets to get a loan, and there will be again. Thank you so much, President Mwamba.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So my concern is not the liquidation process. There's a huge debate. That's not the purpose. But why did Vedanta, why were they asked to leave? It's very clear. They had a huge debt of $1.5 billion, almost $1.6 billion against the assets of KCM. There was even a loan from Standard Bank of $700 million that the bank was willing to take over, put the mine into receivership for them to recover that money. They were not paying utility bills, suppliers, contractors. There was a huge, huge bill. The investment commitments were never met, and they began to rely on, VAT refunds and internally generated funds. And for the entire 20 years, they really never paid any meaningful taxes other than the taxes that the workers pay. They kept on declaring losses. If the company was loss-making for 20 years, why have they put up this big fight to come back? It's very simple. Konkola Deep Mine has ore reserves of $200 billion. $200 billion. That's a very valuable asset. Even when they didn't engage in, as the reports show, they didn't engage in productive and proper mining methods. They used shortcuts and degraded the mine assets. KCM remains a valuable. Don't be cheated. Don't be fooled. These are valuable assets. Mopani copper mine is a very valuable asset. My view is this perception where you think an investor from South Africa, from UK, from Canada, Australia will develop this country is a lie. It won't work. It has never worked. Mr. Sinkamba says ZCCM, the original ZCCMIH, he says they failed to run the mines assets, I think there was no reinvestment, and he says the country was at the verge of collapse. No, Mr. Sinkamba, I think read properly. ZCCM developed, and the receipts, the copper receipts, developed this country. President Kaunda managed to build roads, hospitals, and everything else, the bulk of it from our copper receipts. What suffered was poor to extent, predatory manner in which government, we know when government owns an asset, where they didn't allow ZCM to reinvest, especially in capital projects and develop new mines like the ones that we are developing in Northwestern Province. We knew about them. Government knew about this. ZCMIH literally was bled to death by politicians. It became an ATM. Now, if you put a professional management run by professionals and you government are at a distance, ZCMIH can run these mines. I put a case to you. None of these investors they are pitching for you can even equal to the value of ZCMIH. I told you ZCMIH is listed in London, in France. It can get a group of Zambians that can run these mines, allow them to look for resources. Let me play you this one from Botswana, who's very excited about what their president has done. The beer story.
Done it. In Botswana, we have done it. We finally got our 50% share of our diamonds. My president in Botswana has done it. Even after the British tried to discourage us by saying the contract can only be renegotiated in London, we got our share. Our president has made the future of this country bright. Shine bright like a diamond. Ah, hey. done it. In Botswana, we have done it. We finally got our 50% share of our diamonds. My president in Botswana has done it. Even after the British tried to discourage us by saying the contract can only be renegotiated in London, we got our share. Our president has made the future of this country bright. Shine bright like a diamond. Ah, hey. Done it. In Botswana, we have done it. We finally got our 50% share of our diamonds. My president in Botswana has done it. Even after the British tried to discourage us by saying the contract can only be renegotiated in London, we got our share. Our president has made the future of this country bright. Shine bright like a diamond. Ah, hey. Done it. In Botswana, we have done it. We finally got our 50% share of our diamonds. My president in Botswana has done it. Even after the British tried to discourage us by saying the contract can only be renegotiated in London, we got our share. Our president has made the future of this country bright. Shine bright like a diamond. Ah, hey. Done it. In Botswana, we have done it. We finally got our 50% share of our diamonds. My president in Botswana has done it. Even after the British tried to discourage us by saying the contract can only be renegotiated.
Okay, so we are discussing KCM, and I'll invite you to make your case 077 37833785. 0974 808 115. KCM, valuable asset. Konkola Deep Mine is a huge mine. If you have proper investment, it's one of the wettest mines. It will be one of the deepest mines in the world. But if you dewater, put up a proper investment for dewatering, that mine is all reserves are in excess of $200 billion. It's a gem in KCM. The all sources at Tinchanga mine, I think there was no proper investment. It led to low production. You saw Vedanta now begin to rely on purchased concentrates to literally survive. So I'll invite you to participate. 0974 808 115 or 7737833785. I want to debunk this myth that only foreign investments, only foreign partners can run these mines. ZCMIH already owns now almost 100% with the issues around Mopani. We literally own the entire mine. And on the issues regarding KCM, of course, some matters were in court, but it's also owned by ZCMIH. Give leverage and room. Bring professionals to ZCMIH. They can put up a team, both technical managers, financial experts, to run those mines. Why are we giving away these assets, making billionaires out of foreigners? That's what we've been doing. That's what we've been doing the last 60 years. Whoever owns our emerald mines in Lufanyama, they don't even live here. They live in Paris. They live in Rome. They live in Cape Town. the asset makes them millions of dollars. You know, whoever owns First Quantum, they live wherever they wish to live across the world. Zambia is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. We are high, other than DRC and two other countries. We are among the top wealthiest country in the world. But why do we have poor people? Why don't we have infrastructure? Why is our country not developed? It's because of decisions like this, selfish decisions by our leaders. It's a leadership issue. It has nothing to do with lack of resources. The resources are available before us. I posted something that intrigued a lot of debate. Let me just read it for you. Sometimes we forget who we are as a people, what we have as a country. And we begin to rely on others to develop our country. And then we can't control our exchange rate. It's volatile because copper export receipts are never banked at central bank. They're banked in Switzerland and elsewhere. And you wonder why your exchange rate is not stable. It's simply because, first, our copper export receipts are never banked here. They just give you figures, and they'll send some little money to pay salaries and small investment. Then they rely on VAT refunds as operational money. Totally unfair to our country. Copperbelt province has copper, cobalt, emeralds, beryllium, gold, silver, selenium, quartz, limestone. Northwestern province has uranium, copper, cobalt, nickel, emeralds, beryllium, gold, silver, selenium. Luapula province has manganese, it has copper. You know now about sugilite, one of the most expensive rare gemstone. It has iron. Northern province has gold, it has copper, it has cobalt, it has manganese, it has sugilite, it has iron, it has gold. There is even prospects of oil in Northern province and Eastern province and Luapula. You are aware that across, I think, on Lake Tanganyika, on the DRC, they found some reserves. You see what they found in Uganda. We are under the same Rift Valley. There are some prospects between Malawi and Tanzania. We are under the same Rift Valley, and there's likely that we have a lot of oil. Uganda is already after a discovery, which is huge. They already are done with a pipeline from Dar es Salaam into Uganda. And President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni was very clear. Finish the infrastructure. Let's make a refinery. Let's make a pipeline before you even begin to exploit. So they've been doing simultaneous investments. Those are the decisions we need to make. Eastern province, we have gold, we have copper, prospects of oil. We have aquamarine and tourmaline. Western province, diamonds, prospects of oil, copper. Central province, we have gold, we have lead, we have zinc, we have amethyst, we have aquamarine, tourmaline, copper. Lusaka province, we have a lot of limestone. The entire Lusaka sits on a bed of limestone. This you need for cement, for a lot of things. Pyrite, we still have some copper on the outskirts. Gold, iron, and people are mining gold in Chongwe, and iron. Muchinga province has gold. There's just been a huge rush, gold rush in Impika, in Kanyelele area. So there's gold in Muchinga, there's copper, cobalt, manganese. We still have citrine, topaz, platinum group of metals, as you've seen in Mazabuka. We've been mining, I think, then ruby, mercury sulfide. This has been done by Howard Chulundika, a mining engineer from Leeds University, and he sent this to me and I put it on my page. Zambia is not a poor country. We have poor leadership, not poor resource, but poor leadership. So call us on 07737837885. For WhatsApp, call 0974-808-115. It's our first discussion program. I want to wind it up by 21:30, just to announce that we are back, and today we're discussing KCM and the decisions that were made, why ZCMIH and KCM had to part ways. It was firstly a huge debt that was sitting on KCM assets. To the mining methods, lack of transparency, then the loss declaration for a period of almost 20 years, and then the failure for investment commitments to come. You saw those huge announcements. We are investing $1.5 billion in KCM, the money never came. We're investing $300 million, the money never came. And audits and reports showed that none of that came. So call us on 0977 or 7737-837 077 37 83785. 077, thank you. 077 37 83785 and 0974 808 115. There's another matter. The Vice President, Honorable W.K. Mutale Nalumango, announced in Parliament that her office is inundated with cause of hunger across the country. And the price of mealie meal has jumped to 285 in Mansa. In Lusaka, it's around 259. On the Copper Belt, I think it's 269. She fears that there will be hunger in this country, and she thinks that we need to do something about it. You know, for mealie meal prices, mealie meal is the lowest in July, August, because we are just coming from a harvest. But now we are experiencing the highest cost of mealie meal in July. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Good evening. This is Gautama Nyerere again.
Yes, Gautama, you are back. Thank you very much.
Yes, it's a very engaging conversation, and I felt compelled to call again and to contribute.
Yeah, welcome.
Mr. President, I think I know you've labored to emphasize the point to say that ZCCM has enough resources or enough leverage to be able to go onto international money markets and to be able to gain the much needed funds to be able to run the mines. I don't know. We have this decades long hindrance and perception that we're not able to do it. Maybe away from mining, I can give an example of how these things are done and how they can be done successfully, where you are after an asset and you leverage the asset itself, using the asset as collateral, and you're able to gain that asset and begin running it and become an owner. We're all fans of Premier League soccer. Premier League soccer is the most supported soccer league in the world. It generates billions of dollars. And the jewel in the crown is Manchester United. You may not agree with me. There's a rumor that you're an Arsenal supporter, so you may not agree with me. But the fact of but the jewel in the crown, revenue generation in terms of its global profile, in terms of what it is, Manchester United is the biggest global brand alongside with Real Madrid and Barcelona in the world. Let me take you back to about almost 20 years ago now. The Glazer family, in fact, the patriarch, Malcolm Glazer, who had owned the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and was slowly buying up shares for Manchester United, was a minority shareholder, then became a minority shareholder. He got to the stage where he triggered his intention to purchase Manchester United, and I think he only when he triggered that buyout, the Glazer family only put up maybe $250 and $300 million. What they negotiated was what they call a leverage buyout, where they went to a bank and said, "We've got $200 million here, which we're going to put in for the purchase. And we want from you an additional 500 million. No, it was sold for 700 million pounds. We have 200 million, but we would like additional 500 million from you to this Manchester United, and we will use Manchester United itself as the collateral for purchasing Manchester United." Basically, handed over Manchester United's consortium of banks. The consortium of banks of knowing revenue streams that are gained from Manchester United will go in bank, will go back in things, gave them the club. They're still owners of the club. Basically, they never used a penny of their money. The money that was the shareholding that got to 25%, and then up to now, 20, 25 years later, they still. Now, that's a book club.
Yeah.
A football club that generates.
It can be done.
Yes.
Mr. Adi Dawa came to Zambia, had no money, by his own confession, and 3 months later he was making up to $500 million. They used the assets of KCM. So Gatama, let me take the other call. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Yeah, Mr. Mwamba, calling you from Lusaka. This is Ngosa.
Mr. Ngosa from Lusaka, make your contribution, sir.
Yes, I think what you are saying is correct. Yeah? Because, these people, the so-called investors, they have been coming from outside, making money, going, and if you go to the copper belt, look, roads the way they are, or northwestern province. But these people are getting a lot of money there. What thing are they living there? They're just getting the money going there. Like for these people, Vedanta, we are saying they've been in Zambia for about almost 20 years. And always they declare loss. Now, if you are declaring loss, maybe for 10 years in the business, why should you continue if you are not making profit?
Yeah.
So these people have been cheating. They know that they are making a lot of money. Now just they're taking advantage. Just because they know that maybe these people are desperate, they can't do on themselves. So they are getting that advantage that just because people, they know that in Africa, when they corrupt one or two leaders, they can do whatever they want. As long as those few individuals, let's say maybe in Zambia, few individuals are enjoying, but the money that they're getting from here, they're getting a lot of money, which can even help us. Even in these days that you are saying you have got 12 people, we have got a lot of money here in Zambia. Now, just because the management, the way we manage things, that's a thing, that's a problem which always hinders to progress. And these people, they know that. And they don't want, for instance, Africa to develop. Because they know that if Africa develops, then those resources, they won't get them easily. That is the challenge that we have. But the way you are saying, if you have got the way, like the way you are thinking, and this trajectory that you have, if you have got a lot of people who think like that, I think maybe Zambia can develop, even Africa can develop like that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
This is the thing that you are lacking, Mr. Mwamba.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for calling. Call us on 07737 83785 or 974808 There's a perception, and I've seen this lie, that Vedanta invested in, well, the statistics are very clear. By 2003, KCM had spent over $2.8 billion on new capital projects and to refurbish the existing infrastructure of its mines. On the other side, Vedanta just came and used all these huge borrowings, especially the borrowing from Standard Bank. And, like I was saying about this huge loan that the bank has and left on the assets of KCM. I emphasize, people ask us for alternatives. The alternatives I am proposing is SCCMIH. It's a multi-billion-dollar company listed in London and France. It can leverage and borrow. Do not be cheated that an investor from South Africa or Australia will come and run those mines. They will use the assets of KCM and Mopani and go to a bank to borrow. Tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Good evening, Mwamba.
Good evening.
Yeah, this is the Comrade Mukosa.
Yes, Comrade Mukosa. Where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from within Lusaka.
Thank you, sir. Make your contributions.
Yeah. So this issue of Vendetta, for me, I feel like Vendetta was not treated well in the past regime.
Yes.
Yes, because when you are leaders and you are governing a nation, when such issues happen, what you do, you need to sit down and to iron out issues before it affects the nation. But what did the PF did? They were very rush. They were very in a hurry, making decisions that never benefited us as a nation. That is why now we are having this debate. I feel the new Dawn government, what they have done, they have done a good job. Because we'll be able to know, was it a problem of the way they run the mining sector, and I mean the PF government, or it was the problem of Vedanta. The Dawn government will prove to the Zambians to say, yes, maybe there was some interference in the mining sector by the leadership that we had then. Let us allow Vedanta to do the mining, because the shares that they bought, even now it is still Vedanta is still the biggest shareholder in this mining. KCM.
Okay.
So now,
thank you very much. May I take this call? Kindly conclude quickly. We take the other call on the other phone.
As I conclude.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sometimes I think when we are talking about development, like mines and other developmental undertakings that as a nation we are taking, let us not always bring in politics. Let us find ways to work together so that we can develop our country. I think this is what I had, comrade.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Mkosa, I agree with you. This is not a political matter. This is an intergenerational matter. We have 60 years to learn from. The mines were in private hands. The mines were nationalized. Private hands from 1924 to 1968 until the Mulungushi reforms. We nationalized them at great cost because we had to buy out some assets of Anglo-American, some shareholding. I'll come and explain. Let's take this call. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from. He has put me on hold. My brother, hold your phone quickly. Okay, let's take this other call. He doesn't realize that he has put us on hold. So the mines were nationalized between 1968 and 1991. 1991, we said we're liberalizing our economy, and we decided to privatize most of our industries and our manufacturing sector. And the mines were the jewel in that privatization program. And by 2000 and 2003, we had already privatized the mines. We have 60 years to learn from. Where are we making the same mistakes? Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Emmanuel Mwamba, how are you, sir?
Very well, thank you.
This is Andrew from Helen Kaunda in Lusaka.
Andrew from Helen Kaunda. Make your contributions, my brother.
Thank you very much. I feel so bad, really. Because we seem to be taking, we don't seem to be taking our country seriously. I know that politicians always want to take credit for certain things, but surely where you find your friends have started building something, it's always good to, wonderful. So that it's for the benefit of everybody, not for one person at all. Surely Vedanta did not declare profits for the time that they were running. They lied that they were investing. Why are we going back? Don't we really have brains in this country that can run the mines, number one? Number two, don't we have powerful legal minds that can dissect, that contract and see, whatever credibility that they can find in there to discontinue with this Vedanta issue? We are taking ourselves backwards. These are our assets that we need to benefit from as a nation. we are not benefiting from these assets, people to carry and pesa. And all these minerals that you have talked about, what plans do we have as a nation to exploit them for the benefit of the nation? Surely, if all these minerals that you're talking about, or find companies locally that can exploit this, we will be well off. I was just reading an article, I think that was on Friday, if I'm not mistaken, where Botswana have actually convinced the company mining diamond to go on a 50-50 arrangement. If we could not trade Piranama shares for free, honestly, what are we doing with our nation? What are we doing, sure?
Yeah.
So we need to ask ourselves these questions, and we need to be serious to make sure that we benefit from these assets. Thank you, Ramon.
Thank you very much. We have another caller. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from. So there were various issues with KCM. Mining activities, especially at Tinchanga open pit, suffered. There was failure to carry out waste stripping at Tinchanga open pit to expose higher grade, or there were serious delays in development, especially at Tinchanga and then Konkola underground. They were unable to spend money on exploration and identify new reserves. There was extensive failure to pay copper concentrate suppliers. Remember, they literally stopped mining and then they'll buy concentrates. Again, a huge bill there where concentrate suppliers were not being paid. Utility bills, ZESCO, CEC, name them. Good evening, please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Good evening, Ambassador Mwamba. How are you?
Very well, sir.
This is Esau from Solwezi.
Esau from where?
Solwezi.
From Solwezi. Thank you very much, my brother. Kindly make your contributions.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to find out this Vedanta issue. Are they taking over the mine 100%? Do we have a stake as Zambians as well?
ZCCM owns about 20%, and before the cancellation of the mining license, Vedanta owned about 73%.
Okay, so they are coming back. They own how many shares?
I don't know what the agreements are with government. The previous government, under a liquidator, they had identified the weaknesses, the huge debt that Vedanta left, and I think the assets were surrendered to ZCCMIH. But this government might restore the shareholding, because remember, they are engaged in an out-of-court process.
Okay. In that case, then I think, as we rightly explained, that they have been declaring losses for the past 20 years, and now they want to come back. I don't know how they are going to do it better. I think the government there should have said the government should maintain 70-80%, and maybe Vedanta give them 20%, just to give them the benefit of doubt. But if you're giving them the largest share, then that is where the problem is. I don't know what the government is thinking, but that is my own view. So if a person for 20 years continuously, really, they are declaring losses, then I think seriousness is not there. So the government should really think through as our leaders and ensure that they strike a right deal, and probably maybe disclose the agreement to the public, to the Zambian people, before they actualize the deal that they have. Yeah. That is my own view. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Call us 077-3783-7785 or 974-808-115. The purpose of this conversation is, before government finalizes their plans. Probably they should hear to programs like this and hear your views. We've got this huge resource in our mineral resources, and we have never truly benefited from the assets. And there are many issues with this government where they even give tax incentives, and they've taken long to resolve the issues around Mopani and KCM. That's even beginning to cost us. Their production for at these two mines is almost negligible. And because of these factors, including the incentives that the Minister of Finance gave the mining sector, our tax revenue has dropped from $1.2 billion to around $400 million. So it has a telling effect on our economy immediately, because your tax revenue has dropped from $1.2 billion earnings to now under $400 million. Let's hear from you. Let's hear from you. I noticed that people were calling on the other line, and there was Mr. Esau from the Copper Belt. Mr. Mwape Musenge says, maybe our Copper Belt might turn into a ghost. We don't want to have another Kabwe as an example. Very good. You have minerals, but you don't add value to them and only sell raw materials. He has a good point, Mr. Mwape Musenge, is that add value to the assets. He says we should continue to train more miners, especially from the technological aspect, and administration. Let's learn from Chile. Chile is a good example. Codeco, the company there, benefits a lot. Oh, let me check this call. This is your show. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Mwamba.
Good evening, sir. Tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
My name is Godwin. I'm calling you from Kapiri.
Who?
Godwin.
Godwin from Kapiri. Make your contributions, my brother.
Yeah, I would just like to make a comment as well on the issue of KCM and the Vedanta coming back.
Yes.
This is very unfortunate for this country.
Mm-hmm.
This is a man who went on the international platform to mock us, Zambia, that he bought that company for a song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, he told the world that instead of him coming with a delegation into this country, he came alone because he knew we are gullible. And this is the man we are returning the big mining company to again. And when he came here, he never respected whatever agreements, commitments he made to this government. Honestly, this is very unfortunate. We don't need such kind of investors.
Yeah.
I think we can do this on our own.
Yeah.
Or find other serious people that are willing, to give us a share that will benefit our people in this nation.
Yeah. Yeah.
For how long are we going to be running to these people? We know they are here to exploit us. Because very soon, Copper is a diminishing asset.
Yeah. Yeah.
It will not be there forever. And before it goes, we need to benefit from it. So I like to plata because we have stories like it. These people they manipulate our government. Yeah, they take advantage, especially of you politicians, because when they know there is a campaign, they go behind. They try to get around you. So they come again and take over the same assets that are supposed to be for the people of Zambia.
Yeah. Yeah.
The government should have waited or should have allowed that company to be owned by Zambians or the same HI. It was better off.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, my brother. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Good evening. This is Mwamba. I think within Lusaka, I think for me, we have to start with the access to information. That would be the cardinal. The ATI, we need it as a nation, because that will be the basis of where we will be unearthing these corruption activities and everything. Then I guess the nationalizing the mind will be actually the best way. Otherwise, we will be taken advantage over and over by these foreign people, because they don't care about us. What they care about is making the profit and making their money only. That's why today we don't have medicine in hospitals, because we don't have the resources to go and buy, because they don't actually remit the correct figures that are supposed to be remitting to our treasury. So how do we curb that when those things or those information are hidden? So that's why the ATI is needed. Then we take the further steps.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mwamba. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Inebo Mwanza ndetu mina from Gugulangiriro Kitwe.
Ba Mwanza mwabombeni.
Mkwa Mwamba weso.
Ndita yori na balanga kwa yamba.
Mkwa echo ningalanda pofi. I think before the elections.
Yeah.
Or during our campaigns. Balungu balirandire. Achama intentions ya current regime kuleta ba vendetta rather. Kupoyali he got all that information. Abaleta likabantu abenge sana. What new things vendetta bakaleta in Chingola or Copper Belt at large? We all remember how vendetta even brought casual labor from India at the detriment of the locals. We remember all that. And we actually also remember how the same company could not even meet some obligations. They kept on giving excuses. Tax obligations. We also even remember how the same company could even fail to pay ZESCO. So what is so special about this vendetta right now? If they failed to meet some obligations about that time, talk about even pollution. So even also this time around, are the jobs guaranteed for the commoner or for the locals in Chingola or Copper Belt or even the country at large? No. So whatever they've agreed, I'm just even surprised. You know what? Whereas right now we are hearing about how countries like Congo are renegotiating with the investors. Just today, I was watching something nice on your page about how Botswana has clinched a deal for the locals, to benefit the locals. Right now, talk about even the mines Kuku Northwestern Province. But Perama tax concessions. And what are we seeing? Is the production going up as we were told by the minister, Dr. Musokotwane? No. In fact, for the past 2 years, we've actually seen the production of copper even going down. So now you start wondering, what do these people, the UPND government, do they really want to save the interests of Zambians, or they just want to create opportunities for the foreigners at the detriment of the locals?
Yeah.
You see the point? Because at the end of the day, what new things is Vendetta going to do? Nothing.
Yeah.
Even our tax obligations, they must to fail. Right now, we've even given concessions. What will prevent Vendetta from twisting the current government?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mwanza. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, have a good evening, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for those contributions. So the mine was worth $1.2 billion at the market price of $650 million. Vedanta bought it for $25 million. $25 million. It's really, like I've always said, this is the biggest corporate scandal in our country for whatever reasons. In 2013, ZRI placed a tax demand of $600 million on KCM. And KCM was also claiming $37 million in VAT refunds. Vedanta went to court. They didn't want to pay this ZCCM, this ZRI bill of $600 million. Good evening. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Evening, how are you, Mr. Mwamba?
Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from, sir.
This is Banda. I'm just calling Taurai Banda. I'm calling within Lusaka.
Mr. Taurai Banda, make your contributions.
Yes, I know us. We are very disappointed. Otherwise, Judge, yes, I think the only president which we can recommend is President Kaunda. Although, yes, although it was some time back, you know, I think it's changing. When you look at our minds, those are God-given resources which we can benefit fully. I don't know even these loans which we get from IMF, where we take them. Do we consume them? Even when we take them for, you know, even if we get them, we consume. It doesn't even change anything to our country. Because if we get that money and then we invest, instead of calling an investor to come and controlling our resource, which has been given by God. When we look at potentially, I think some time back we heard that they are getting those dump sites, they are getting the same body, they are going to take to someone where they are processing it, which is not good. And while, you know, and then African president, they are very good at talking. You remember they went, currently, I think previously, they went to France. They are given very good examples, you know, they are good at analyzation, but when it comes into action, nothing. Stories, all over stories. It's not good at all. And everyone now knows the value of what we have in our country. We want also to benefit. Right now, people are crying over the middleman, over everything. And then when we talk about minerals, if even those subsidies have removed, others they cannot go the mine copper direct and benefit from those resources. They are trying to benefit from the subsidy. Yes. How things are bad.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Banda Taurai.
Thank you.
You remember that JCCM IH won a big case with Vedanta. There's what they call price participation agreement. When the price of copper goes higher, JCCM has IH has this agreement with their partners. And Vedanta was not paying a total of $119 million. JCCM had to go to court.
Good evening, Ambassador.
My dear brother, what David Mwamba from Mongo. How are you, sir?
All right. How was Hotel California?
It was wonderful. To be a leader, you have to go to prison first. It's like that's a standard in Zambia.
No. President Zuma must have told you to say, you are a protege of President Zuma.
Yeah.
You know, I want to ask you something. I don't really want to mix this thing today.
And what?
The other thing I want to find out from you, which I don't understand. Maybe I might be having a wrong argument.
Yeah.
KCM, it's Konkola deep mine, isn't it?
Konkola copper mines, and among the assets it has, other than, you know, in Changa open pit, it also has Konkola deep mining, one of the assets.
So the copper we are talking about in KCM is just the same like the copper. I mean, the expense of digging of mining it. Is it the same like the copper in Northwestern Province?
Yes, to a large extent. In fact, the copper on the copper belt is far richer than the ones in Northwestern Province. In Western Province, you have to strip a lot of waste before you find the copper. I think I'll get you the exact details of the mineralization, as they call it, per time. Yeah.
The information I have.
Yes.
That's, I don't know if you have, that's the problem with when I'm talking with a limited time. The information I have is Kenneth Kaunda. Let's start it from Kenneth Kaunda's era. Kenneth Kaunda knew that there was copper on Northwestern Province.
Yeah.
He was told.
Yes, he knew.
But
They knew.
Told,
that done the exploration. They knew.
Kaunda was, this country is mapped. Kaunda took over a country which was mapped in terms of minerals.
Yeah.
It's a truth. The white guys in Northern Rhodesia mapped this country. Although, I don't know, Kenneth Kaunda has his reasons why it was kept as status or whatever those maps are. But Kaunda knew. Kaunda knew that Northwestern Province had copper. But from the information I have, he was told to say, Kaunda, if you open up Northwestern Province, that means you'll have a problem mining the copper belt. First, try to exhaust all the copper on the copper belt. That's when you can open up Northwestern Province. And from what I know, myself, President Chiluba followed through with that knowledge, because the copper core on the copper belt is at 0.5%. Now, in Northwestern Province, it's at 15% copper core. Every rock you come across in Northwestern Province, it's likely to have copper. That's why at certain time, when KCM was getting run by the same Vedanta, they were getting rocks. People were carrying rocks in tippers to go and sell to the smelter in KCM. From what I know, there was a time when KCM couldn't even mine. They had to start buying copper, whatever, from Congo, because it was cheaper for them to buy the copper from Congo and use the smelter. And do you know the story of how that smelter came about? When Zambia was losing under President Chiluba, by then I was working for President Chiluba with Joseph Chilaija. Under President Chiluba, he told me, said, David, we have a problem. President Chiluba himself told me that personally. May his soul rest in peace. He told me, David, we are losing $1 million. Do you know the story of losing $1 million on the mine? Yeah. President Chiluba was losing $1 million on the mines. When Zambia was under the structure adjustment program. So when Vendetta came on board, that smelter was not there. People like talking about the 25 million, yes, but it came with a smelter worth 78 million pounds. The British said, we are going to give Vendetta a grant of 78 million to buy a smelter. Because that mine couldn't run without a smelter. So that mine, it actually did not sell for $25 million. It was sold for $25 million to exchange that, but there was a smelter on that agreement for $78 million. Katele Kalumba knows that transaction very well. So what I'd like you to do for us, this program of KCM is what, let's avoid the politics in it. I would like you to do a lot of research. I would like you to honestly come out on radio on the next, make this continuous. Tell us the whole story of how KCM was under before Kaunda privatized, nationalized, to when Kaunda nationalized under ZCMIH, to the time we went into privatization. And to the time when Manawasa wanted to change from being a cabbage to a state for how he opened up Northwestern Province before finishing the copper on the copper belt. When you go through that whole story, then you'll have the answers which you are looking for right now. The people you are talking to don't know the real story. That data, first of all, that court case which was going on, how long do you think that legislation would have taken? If this government is still in place, could have left it to say this case is in court, Let's go on. How long would the litigation would have taken place? How long could that be settled in court? Because even these minor issues of corruption at the end, how long do they take? So let's talk about real issues. How long do you think it would have taken for a smart guy like that guy, the owner of Vedanta, with expensive lawyers? How long could that case would have taken them?
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. Thank you, David. Let me take the last few calls and thank you. I think we will need to go back to history because some of the audience may not understand the history of our mines. We can trace from the first mines that were opened in Kabwe. We can do a run when they were in private hands. When between 1968 and between 1964 and 1968, then under ZCCM, Nchanga and RCM, who owned what? How did they become Nampundwe? We can do a quick map of who owned what. Then after privatization, which assets went to which investor. And then after commissioning the exploration in Northwestern Province, we also then can map who got what and what was sold to who. First one time buried gold, and so that our people understand where we're coming from.
Yes, and what made Manawasa become cabbage from cabbage to steak.
Wonderful. No, we can do that. For Manawasa, only hold him accountable because he sold KCM to this Vedanta, a mine valued at $1.2 billion, sold for $25 million.
When Anglo-American left, why did Anglo-American leave a profitable mine?
Yes, and they had invested just about $300 million. They just invested in smelting facilities $300 million when Manawasa won elections against Mazoka, then they pulled out.
In 2002.
So those
are the issues we should break down.
No, David, I can do that. You know, I'm an information man and I love information. So with your experience and knowledge, when the two of us sit to make a time bomb.
Ambassador, to tell you, Zambia is a one-party participatory democracy. One day, you will believe me. Zambia is a one-party participatory democracy. We've never moved away from that. Zambia is a one-party participatory democracy.
No, we want it to be a thriving multi-party democracy.
It's an argument for another day.
Thank you very much.
Zambia is not in a multi-party system. No.
So we need to develop our democratic institutions and others. Thank you, what David Litume Shangwe.
We use the word to say politics has no permanent enemies.
True.
Once we are not just accepting that we are in a one-party participatory democracy,
we
want to use an excuse to say,
oh, David, sorry, we had to cut him. Coming back to KCM and the issues that the special audit, I think, brought out is that Vedanta kept on telling everyone that they had invested over $2 billion in KCM. The audit shows something else. The financing was internally generated up to $2 billion from KCM. Then they borrowed $743 million, mostly. So 74% was internally generated funds, $743 million, 26%. And so Vedanta didn't really finance this capital expenditure. And the audits showed who we owed and how the monies was raised. On Konkola deep mining, about almost $1 billion was sunk in. But the trouble with government is that the technology that they had used to attempt to develop Konkola deep mining and the delays for lack of this investment that was pledged and the expansion of concentration and smelting capacity that we're going to get this all from Konkola deep. But the money really didn't come, and now there's an extension that to dewater, demine and develop Konkola to take between 7 to 10 years. What will you do with this smelting and concentrating assets in between if you're going to wait for 7 to 10 years? That ought to be, visited. So as we begin to close, we've gone up to this time. I thought we were around 21 there. I'd like to thank you all. Remember, we have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but we have football. We are supporting the Copper Queens in Australia. If there is football, we will not hold the brief, just in honor of the girls. And I'm a football fan. I love football. I'm Arsenal. Gautama is Man U. Wadipawa Man U, although they are still a rich club, but we are rooting for the girls. So let's end with this dedication to the Copper Queens, and then my theme song will play. Thank you for your contributions and thank you for your messages. Let's continue the debate. We'll see if on Wednesday we can continue with this, because government is at the verge of making announcements around Mopani and KCM, and we have a duty to provide alternatives. My alternatives today were very strong submissions that ZCCMIH can run these 2 mines. You don't have to look for an investor, an equity partner. You love, here in Zambia, our leadership love making billionaires out of our own assets. Mr. Ani Wagahao came, as you heard here. He said he didn't even have $4 million. He said by the end of the year, he had a mine that was minting him $500 million a year. These assets should be utilized for the benefit of our people. I love foreign investment, but it should come on our terms. I love foreign participation. You can't be an island. Even China is being driven by foreign investment. But China determines the mandates. China determines the role of this foreign investment, from taxation policies to benefits to employees and to reinvestment in the economy in China. You ought to determine the partnership. You can't surrender your birthrights in the manner we've been doing the last 6 years. And these resources have not benefited us. And from hearing from the minister, hearing from the president, they are taking us on the same old tired path that has never benefited us. So God bless you. Thank you for listening, and I'll leave you with this submission from our Chipolopolo girls, the Copper Queens that are in Australia. We wish them well. We think that they will succeed. They've been doing very well. So good night. God bless you. We are back, and we'll continue to speak to national